Hello. Hello, Misfit Hub. Must be Tuesday afternoon. Let me just close down a couple of things so I don't have too many distractions. There we go. Cool. Is it just me, or do you also have 35 windows and apps open on your computer all at once? I think compared to the 2000 that are open in my brain at any one time, I still feel like, oh, that's not too bad. Even though it's really hectic. There's a lot going on. Cool. Speaking of a lot going on, there's lots going on. There's always lots going on. We've got lots of things happening. If you are local to me or local to Mornington Peninsula, I am scheduled to be running a presentation on Thursday at midday in Mornington for business owners and entrepreneurs who are looking at shifting away from a one-to-one model that sort of promotes being maxed out and burnt out into a one-to-many model to relieve that burnout and find business balance and work smarter, not harder, and leverage your expertise. So if there's anyone here in the Misfit Hub that fits for, and you can get down towards Mornington on Thursday, DM me and I'll send you the details. Otherwise, maybe you know someone that is a really amazing coach, a really amazing Reiki or massage person, or someone who's doing some one-to-one hands-on work, who you can never get in to see because they're flat out. And if they launched a course or a program, you would get on board with that. Then let them know about it and they can come down to Mornington on Thursday afternoon and come and hear from me about how we can do that, right? Because we need to get our business owners and our entrepreneurs feeling good. So for those who don't know me, for whatever reason, my name's Lisa Westgate and I am the creator, space holder and founder of the Misfit Hub, which is a place for weirdos to come and talk about all things evolution and improving our lives, primarily by living a life of zero fucks and learning how to do that in roughly 90 days or less. Every Tuesday I go live, except when I don't. No, pretty much every Tuesday. And I run a training in here about the topics that are of interest to us, whether that is personal development, personal growth, recovering from trauma. There's all sorts of areas that we can cover. Just not sure where that dinging is coming from. You guys probably can't hear it even. Probably not even bothering you, which is good. I don't want it to bother you. Anyway, all good. We'll ignore it and we'll move on. So today's topic, we are going to be talking in part about language. So as my background is as a NLP master practitioner and trainer, NLP being neuro-linguistic programming, L being linguistic meaning words, I'm pretty much a word nerd. Also, one of my neuro-spicy tendencies is that words really stand out to me. Particularly like errors in words makes me a really good editor usually, especially of other people's work. You don't always see it in your own. Remember to jump on and say hi when you jump in, hopefully. Look, it's the 11th of October at 1:11. That's pretty cool. So remember to jump on and say hi when you come in. I'd love to know who's watching. And today we're going to have a conversation about words and the power of words, the intention of words, and the energy that words bring with them. And I will also be revealing to you the one word that you must stop saying immediately. And I'm normally, like I said in the copy, as in that's the little text bit about what I'm going to talk about. I'm pretty much an advocate of all words, all language, and I think given that every word, excuse me, I'm still a bit unwell. Given that every word has its own energy, we also need to consider the intention of the use of that word and the context that word is used in. What's the context around it? These are all things to take into consideration when we're thinking about words. So I'll just take a second, make sure to jump in, give me an emoji, say hi. I never seem to manage to finish an entire cup of coffee. Could just be me. So I wonder where you guys are. Where is everybody? Not sure where you've all gone. It was very quiet last week. It's very quiet this week. Now, is this just a daylight savings change? Are some of you unavailable? Or am I doing something differently? I'm just not sure what's going on. I usually have quite a few people jumping on my lives and interacting, which is always great. Not that I'll still come on here and share the information with you. It's obviously just much better for you to receive it in real time. So I'm just curious as to where everybody's gone. It's been a little quiet the last couple of weeks. May very well be a what do they call it? Algorithm change. Let me know in the comments if you got a notification that I was going to be live. We set up the event. Did we not set up an event? Maybe we didn't set up an event. Anyway, I'll have a look. I wonder if I can tag people. Yep. So I have this funny feeling that we didn't set up an event. So you don't know that I'm live. Well, I'm here. And today I'm going to talk about language and words, and hopefully you get to see this. Right. So words have intention, words have power, words have energy. They each bring their own energy to to people and to the world. I do know someone who references, sort of abracadabra as, words can be affirmations and incantations and mantras, and that's why it's called spelling, right? Because words create magic. Words can be spells. Words can be, powerful energy shifters in this world. So generally speaking, you would have heard me say that, any emotion that comes from within us is here to serve a positive purpose. Any feeling or language we use is ultimately to benefit us. We generally speaking, our unconscious mind has our back. It wants us to succeed. And so what comes from us is trying to serve us, even when it's challenging or painful. So, generally speaking, I would not usually demonize a word or a group of words, because I think, given the intention and the context, it's the word itself is usually not so much the issue. Words and language, when received, also inspire an emotion in someone. They can inspire emotions in us and in other people, and feelings. They leave us with a feeling. So that's why it's important to choose your language well, in conversation with others and also with yourself. So thinking about some words and the emotions that they inspire, we could think about words like yellow, balloons, sunshine, celebrate. And if we took those sorts of words, what sort of emotion does that inspire within you? For most of us, that would be, happy, joy, warmth. Those words inspire those sense of feelings within us, right? Conversely, if you took some words like pain, accident, illness, failure, maybe even blue. Those words can leave us feeling pretty low, sad, grief, depressed, even, right? So there's certain language that lifts us up, and there's certain language that pulls us down. And language and words make us feel a whole array of emotions. So when you put your point forward in a discussion with someone, you put your point across, and they say, yeah, but how does that make you feel, right? It makes you feel invalidated because they've just said yeah, which is sort of a kind of acknowledgement, and then they've followed it with but, right? And but, what the word but does is it negates everything that was said before it, whether that was by you or by somebody else. So if you're using but in your emails, right? So please notice, if you're in a role where you're giving feedback, perhaps you're giving feedback, and you're saying, you did this well, that was great, but, and then all the areas for improvement afterwards, you're actually negating all the positive you just said, because you've stopped it with but. So that, but, now this. And so the focus of the language, the focus of the sentence becomes the second half, which is where you've put all the issues. So you can use the word but be mindful and conscious in your use of it, knowing that it negates the whatever preceded it, which you may want to do on purpose, which is fine. So generally speaking, language is a tool that we can use to elicit a certain emotional response in people. And the more conscious you are aware of this, the more deliberately you're using language, the more power you potentially wield. So lots of different words can create different feelings in us. You'll also hear me talk about, or you've probably also heard me talk about, how I don't really buy into this whole positive feelings and negative feelings. I don't think feelings like fear or anger are necessarily negative feelings. I don't think they're the enemy. I don't think we need to eradicate them from our lives. Get rid of fear entirely. My perspective on it is that all emotions, all spectrum of human emotions and feelings, serve a positive purpose at their root. So fear is really important. Fear stops you walking out into traffic. Fear stops you getting into a car with a stranger. Fear is there for your protection and your safety, right? So most of the time, it's serving a positive purpose. Obviously, contextualized, the right context, the right intensity. It may only require some guarded hesitation as opposed to terror. So we want to make sure that we're experiencing fear appropriately, maybe 2 out of 10, not necessarily always an 11 out of 10. But fear itself, not necessarily a negative emotion, because it stops you putting yourself in dangerous situations, which, again, the subconscious programming that we're all carrying around is intended to keep us alive and is trying to serve a positive purpose. So there's that. Anger is, again, not necessarily a negative emotion. It can be you can have a negative expression of anger. It can be very dangerous, detrimental to your life and your lifestyle. But anger in itself, not necessarily a negative emotion, so to speak. At times it can be very unresourceful and unhelpful and not what you need right now. But anger is there to let us know that a boundary has been crossed, or that we have allowed a boundary to be crossed, right? So anger, again, to keep us safe. So when I talk about words on their own typically aren't the enemy, right? I don't know that there's, sort of bad words. And emotions, to me, I will talk about in context in terms of resourceful, as in, is it what's useful right now? Resourceful or unresourceful right now, in the moment, in the situation. Resourceful or unresourceful emotions that we're accessing at any particular time, rather than positive emotions and negative emotions. I don't think that, there's bad emotions that we don't want you to feel. We want you to have a full human experience and entire spectrum of emotions. I think that's, in my perspective, that's the healthiest, goal, is to be able to experience emotions across the spectrum appropriately and at appropriate intensity in the right context, right? That to me is like the healthy aim that we're kind of going for. So, having prefaced all this, I'm generally pretty reluctant to sort of demonize an emotion or demonize a word and say, like, you have to stop saying this, or you have to never feel this again, right? Because I just don't think that's kind of how we work as human beings either. However, there is an emotion that I find, as much as I appreciate it does have a positive intention, which may be on some occasions to learn, as an impetus to learn from our mistakes, to not repeat certain actions or behaviors, right? So let's assume that the intention of this emotion is to learn an important lesson so as not to repeat it. Okay, that's helpful. But what I find in my life experience, and particularly as a professional, in my professional capacity, and particularly at the moment, for some reason, this emotion has been coming up a lot. And almost all of the time, it is coming up unresourcefully, like very strongly unresourcefully. It's not helping, it's not giving us that lesson, it's just making life harder. We also know in the mental health space that particularly for men, and especially for young men, this emotion is potentially deadly, in that if you spend too much time with it, it is depressing, it is unmotivating, and it is potentially inducing of getting into a state where you feel like suicide might be a viable option, right? It's never a viable option. It's a temporary, it's a permanent fix to it, to a temporary problem, right? It's never a good choice. It's never the right way to go. This emotion, however, if you sit in it for long enough and you steep in it like a tea bag that has been sitting in a mug for too long, you may very well find that this emotion drives those sorts of thoughts and considerations of those sorts of behaviors. And that, to me, is the definition of unresourceful, right? It's not good. We don't need it. It doesn't help. The emotion that I'm talking about, that I feel is 99% unresourceful, I appreciate it does have a positive intention way down, but it can be so overwhelming and so toxic that people will never identify what that positive intention of it is. The emotion that I'm speaking about that is so dangerous in terms of our mental well-being is shame. Shame is an incredibly powerful emotion that very rarely does anything good from. Nothing good ultimately comes from shame. And that's where the danger lies. Shame is a demotivating emotion. It doesn't propel you to do anything about it. It's a very stagnant emotion. It's very heavy. When we're in shame, we tend to sit in it. We tend to not really do anything. The amount of effort required to do something to shift it is enormous. And it doesn't lead to good behaviors, right? We don't shame ourselves into eating healthier. We don't shame ourselves into exercise. We shame ourselves into an entire packet of Tim Tams or a whole tub of ice cream. We shame ourselves into, movie marathons and binge watching. That's the sort of activities that shame leads to, because it's not empowering, right? It's a heavy, drags you down kind of emotion. And what I wanted to talk about today, and the reason for the title of today's training, is that there is a word that most of the time is not motivating, is not empowering, is not, doesn't propel you to do better. It drops you into shame, or it drops the person receiving it into shame. So if you're using it for yourself, it's you. If you're using this word to other people, if you're saying this to other people, it's dropping them into shame, which is again primarily unresourceful, doesn't get them moving. It's not going to make them change their behavior. It's just going to make them feel like shit. And if it's you using it for yourself, it's going to make you feel like shit, right? And the word that induces shame very consistently is the word should. Should. You should know that already. I should be further along than I am. I should exercise daily. I should make better food choices. You should get off the couch. You should ... I should ... This word should has the heaviness of shame in it. So I encourage you to stop saying this word immediately. Take it out of your lexicon, remove it from your vocabulary, sharpie it out of the dictionary in your house, and remove it from your mind. And if you're looking for an alternative, an empowering alternative to situations in which perhaps you're saying the word should and inducing shame in yourself or others, you can use other words. For example, I choose to move my body every day. I choose healthy food to nourish myself most of the time. I choose to limit my screen time, my television time, to an hour a day, 2 hours a day. You could choose to come and have a walk with me. The use of the word could and choice and choose re-empowers the listener, whether that's yourself or somebody else, to be in charge of their actions without judgment. It's just options. It's just possibility. You could do that. You could choose that. I could choose that. I choose to do this. That's my choice. That's empowering. I can stand by that. I'm going to adhere to my choice and go for a walk. Whereas if I know that I should go for a walk, but now I have to take all that heaviness out with me when I go put on my runners and I go to the front door and I, get my hat or my sunglasses or whatever it is, right? I've got to take that should shame with me for a walk. That's really heavy. Whereas if I take the energy of choice, where I take the energy of nourishing myself, where I take the energy of I have options and this is the option I've chosen, it's a completely different energy I'm taking on my walk. Right? I'm not going to trudge through the walk with my eyes downcast because it's a shame walk, right? What do we even call that in the morning? The walk of shame, right? Holding your shoes in your hand and eyes to the ground. So the word that I encourage you to release, to let go of, to erase, to stop using is should, because should is a fast track to shame. And shame doesn't get anybody anywhere. If this has been helpful and you want to have a chat about some of the language that you're using, changing some of your self-talk, that is one of the modules that we go over. I think it's module 9 in my program. So if you wanted to have a chat about how that all works, I encourage you to put the word nerd into the comments. Obviously, you'll have to put hashtag replay nerd. If you're watching this on replay, which I hope many of you do, because I think this is a really simple shift in language and therefore a shift in emotion and intention, then make sure to put hashtag replay and then put the word nerd. And if you put the word nerd, because I'm a word nerd, that is just a little note to me that I need to reach out to you and we can have a chat, right? No obligation, no stress. Just a reminder that today at 5 p.m. we are finishing up the current offer that's on the table with an extra month of coaching with me as part of the 90-day program. So you actually get 120 days of coaching and support within the within the program. So if you put that word in, I'll just reach out to you and we'll say hi and we'll have a chat. I hope that's been useful. I hope it's sort of bite-sized and it's an easy thing for you to do, to make a change if you choose to do so, and potentially just get generally more mindful about the language that you're using towards yourself and towards others. Let me know if this was helpful. I've been speaking on the phone a lot lately to people that are carrying a lot of shame, and it's causing a lot of pain and not great behaviour choices. So I just wanted to share that with you today. I hope you found it useful and relevant, and I will see you next time for another training. Bye for now.